Hey, I just wanted to make a video further discussing the topic of can video games be spiritual? I made a video about this earlier, a few months ago, I think. So something that came to my attention was that I personally believe that they can be very spiritual because for to be a spiritual experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be like all like mystical and like out of body experiences and visions and stuff like that. Because to be spiritual, a lot of the times that just implies being joyful, being in high spirits. It's not necessarily anything weird, but if you're playing a game that really brings you into like that high spirit, like a lighthearted feeling, I mean, it's probably coming from the storytelling aspect of the game, but that's exactly why it can be spiritual. Because I think video games are dismissed a lot in the spiritual community as being like, oh, you're just brainwashing people, or like, you're just lazy or apathetic. You don't really care about anything. You're just playing video games like a little immature child. But it's not like that at all, depending on how you play it. Because you see, video games can be anything like sex, alcohol, sports, like TV. It's only if you let it take control of you that it becomes something bad. But if you're just enjoying it, like from a mature, like reasonable, and like, disciplined state, then it can benefit you. Getting back to what I was saying about video games being like a journey, I think I said that before, but of spiritual experience, but it's like a journey in a way, like shamanic journeying, sort of, because you're shown this like other world and you're exploring it, and there's like things happening, and you are like learning from, you're learning about something as the story progresses. Because not all journeying has to be like an out of body experience in like a spiritual dimension, but it can just be like being like listening to a poetry reading and experiencing what the poet is like talking about. It's putting you in another state, like an exploration. I want to say like explorative kind of state, but I don't know if that's a word. I don't know. I mean, you're just like seeing like a whole nother world, and like I said, you're learning from it. There's things happening that are like teaching you something. And a lot of video games are actually very spiritual. Like they have a spiritual background, like the Final Fantasy games, because like the summons in the games, like there's certain entities in the games that are based on real like ancient gods and goddesses. It has that aspect of being spiritual, but in the overall aspect of being like a real like good experience, like something like joyful and like learning wisdom, video games can have a lot to say. And I don't think it's too good to say like that they can be spiritual. And then there's also the debate that like it causes you to be anxious when there's no real threat. Like you're about to lose in the video game, so you start getting anxious, and that's not a real threat to you. So in a way, it's kind of like messing with your mind. But you can say the same for sports actually, because like if you're like playing basketball and someone steals the ball, you can get like you feel like you're under attack, sort of. Maybe not necessarily anxious because you're moving around a lot, but you're like you feel like something's wrong. But there's no real threat. Like you're not actually like in danger. So it's the same thing. And yeah, like I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think once you do get to like a really heightened spiritual state, you might not be interested in video games as much. But that could be untrue though. I don't really know that because I know that Bentino Massaro. If you don't know who he is, he's like an enlightened teacher. He's young, but he plays video games. He was talking one in one of his lectures. He was playing. He was talking about playing Xbox, and he related to how like spiritual, the whole spiritual life is like a video game, like all the dimensions and stuff like that, and consciousness. So yeah, overall, I think video games can be spiritual. Just don't let it take control of you. Yeah. All right. Peace.